They call it a wasted career. At 7 feet 4 inches tall, Ralph Sampson was supposed to be the next great basketball superstar. Instead, his story became one of the most heartbreaking what-ifs in sports history. But what if everything you think you know about Ralph Sampson is wrong? What if his legacy is actually far more inspiring than tragic? The truth is that Ralph Sampson accomplished something no player before or since has ever done. He redefined what was possible for a player his size and became basketball's first true unicorn, decades before that term even existed. His story isn't about failure. It's about a revolutionary talent who changed the game forever, even if his time at the top was shorter than anyone hoped. Ralph Sampson was born different. Standing 7 feet 4 inches by the time he reached college, he possessed something that had never been seen before in basketball. Most big men of his era were slow, clumsy giants who could only play close to the basket. Samson moved like a guard trapped in a center's body. He could dribble the ball up the court, shoot from anywhere on the floor, and defend multiple positions with his incredible reach and athleticism. This wasn't just tall for the sake of being tall. This was a complete basketball player who happened to tower over everyone else. He could handle the ball with the skill of a point guard, shoot with the accuracy of a forward, and block shots like the best defensive centers. No one had ever seen anything like it. He was a new breed of basketball player, a precursor to the modern versatile big man that we see today. When people compare Victor Wembanyama to Ralph Sampson today, they're recognizing something special. Samson was the original unicorn, the first player to prove that being extremely tall didn't mean you had to be limited in what you could do on a basketball court. He broke the mold and showed the world what the future of basketball could look like. His dominance began long before he ever stepped foot in the professional league. At the University of Virginia, Ralph Sampson became a phenomenon unlike anything college basketball had ever seen. He appeared on the cover of Sports Illustrated 6 times in less than 4 years. Think about that for a moment. In an era before social media and constant coverage, this college player was so captivating that the biggest sports magazine in America couldn't stop featuring him. The numbers tell an incredible story. During his 4 years at Virginia, Sampson led the team to a record of 123 wins and only 22 losses. He guided the Cavaliers to an NIT championship in 1980 and took them all the way to the NCAA Final Four in 1981. But his individual achievements were even more remarkable. Ralph Sampson became the only player in the history of college basketball to win the Naismith National Player of the Year award 3 times. Not twice, 3 times. This award goes to the best college basketball player in the entire country, and Sampson won it 3 years in a row. He also claimed the Wooden Award twice and was named a consensus first-team All-American 3 times. If you love basketball and believe in the power of greatness, make sure to subscribe and tell us in the comments which current player reminds you most of Ralph Sampson's unique combination of size and skill. Your thoughts matter to us and help shape future content. The anticipation for his professional career was unlike anything the basketball world had ever experienced. Draft experts called him the consensus #1 overall pick for 3 years straight. The Houston Rockets, who held the first pick in 1983, were told by everyone that they couldn't miss with this selection. Ralph Sampson wasn't just a good prospect. He was viewed as an inevitable superstar, a player destined to change professional basketball forever. When the Rockets selected him first overall in the 1983 draft, Sampson proved that the hype was justified. He won the NBA Rookie of the Year award in 1984, showcasing all the skills that had made him a college legend. He averaged over 15 points and 8 rebounds per game, while demonstrating the versatility that made him so special. He could play multiple positions, stretch the floor with his shooting, and protect the rim on defense. But the Rockets weren't done building something special. The following year, they again held the #1 pick in the draft. This time, they selected a young center from Nigeria named Hakeem Olajuwon. The combination of the 7'4" Samson and the 7' Olajuwon created what became known as the Twin Towers, one of the most formidable front courts in basketball history. The Twin Towers immediately captivated the basketball world. Here were 2 incredibly talented big men who complemented each other perfectly. Samson's versatility and outside shooting paired beautifully with Olajuwon's interior dominance and defensive prowess. Fans and experts alike believed they were watching the formation of a dynasty. Many thought the Rockets were on their way to multiple championships with this incredible combination of talent. The promise of the Twin Towers reached its peak during the 1986 season. That year, Samson and Olajuwon led the Rockets on one of the most impressive playoff runs in franchise history. They faced the mighty Los Angeles Lakers in the Western Conference Finals, a Lakers team featuring Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and James Worthy that was heavily favored to win. But the Twin Towers had other plans. In a series that shocked the basketball world, the Rockets defeated the Lakers to advance to the NBA Finals. The series was sealed by one of the most memorable shots in basketball history. With time running out, Ralph Sampson hit a baseline turnaround jumper at the buzzer, to eliminate the Lakers. The shot was pure magic, a moment that had the entire city of Houston celebrating and hoisting their hero on their shoulders. Ralph Sampson had proven himself on the biggest stage possible. He was a four-time NBA All-Star and won the All-Star Game MVP award in 1985. He was named to the All-NBA second team and established himself as one of the premier players in the league. The Rockets made it all the way to the NBA Finals, where they faced the Boston Celtics. Although they lost that finals series in 6 games to a legendary Celtics team, the consensus was clear. The young Rockets were a team on the verge of greatness. With Samson and Olajuwon both still in their early 20s, the future looked incredibly bright. Multiple championships seemed not just possible, but probable. Then came March 24, 1986. During a game against the Boston Celtics, Ralph Sampson was going for a rebound when he landed awkwardly, his head driven into the court. The fall resulted in a severely bruised back, forcing him to miss 3 games. According to Rockets president Ray Patterson, Sampson was never quite the same after that injury. This wasn't just a simple injury. It was the beginning of a cascade of physical problems that would ultimately change the trajectory of his career. As Samson returned to play, he began compensating for the pain in his back and hip. This compensation led to chronic knee problems that would plague him for the rest of his career. The decision to rush his rehabilitation to return for the playoffs was one that Samson would later regret. But this choice came from a place of dedication and commitment to his team, not from any lack of toughness or character. He wanted to help the Rockets win a championship, and he was willing to risk his long-term health to make that happen. The physical pain and frustration of playing through these injuries reached a boiling point during the 1986 NBA Finals. In Game 5, with the Rockets trailing the Celtics, Samson got into a heated altercation with Boston's much smaller backup guard, Jerry Sichting. Fueled by relentless taunting from both Sichting and the hostile Boston crowd, Samson finally snapped and threw punches, leading to his ejection from the game. The incident was widely mocked in the media. Larry Bird made dismissive comments, and fans in Boston taunted him with chants and signs calling him weak. The public reaction turned what should have been understood as the frustrated outburst of an injured player into a permanent stain on his reputation. But this incident wasn't the act of someone lacking mental toughness. It was the painful reaction of a player struggling with immense internal and external pressures while playing through severe physical pain. The fight occurred when Samson was already compromised by the back injury that had begun affecting his entire body. His emotional outburst should be viewed as evidence of how much he cared, not how little strength he possessed. The situation was made worse by his complicated relationship with Houston coach Bill Fitch. Fitch was known as a tough, demanding coach who believed in discipline and visible displays of commitment. He grew frustrated with what he perceived as Samson's lack of work ethic, particularly his preference to spend off seasons in his home state of Virginia rather than working out in Houston. But the truth of their relationship was far more complex than it appeared on the surface. Those who knew Samson best described him as a fundamentally introverted person who had been forced to become an extrovert due to the pressures of superstardom. His college coach, Terry Holland, explained that Samson worked very hard internally, but didn't show it in ways that everyone could see. His quiet, stoic nature was often misinterpreted as indifference or laziness. Samson's closest teammate, Rodney McRae, saw through the misconceptions. He called Samson a low-profile guy who played too hard and was a winner in every sense of the word. The disconnect between Fitch's coaching style and Samson's personality created unnecessary tension that ultimately hurt both the player and the team. The media criticism continued to mount. Figures like Dick Vitale claimed that Samson needed to develop more mental toughness and tenacity, completely missing the reality of what was happening. This wasn't about toughness. This was about a mismatch between expectations and personality, between a coach's demands for visible emotion and a player's quiet determination. The conflict eventually reached a breaking point. Unconfirmed newspaper reports suggested that Fitch had given management an ultimatum, demanding that either Samson leave or he would. While Fitch denied these reports, their very existence highlighted the dysfunction that was undermining what should have been a championship team. A year and a half after that fateful injury, Ralph Sampson was traded to the Golden State Warriors. His time with the Rockets and his brief but meteoric peak were over. His knee suffered a major cartilage tear in 1987, and he was never able to return to his former level of play. The end of his basketball career marked the beginning of new challenges. Like many athletes of his era, Samson faced significant financial difficulties that weren't entirely of his own making. A substantial portion of the millions he earned was lost through his agent, Tom Collins. This wasn't a case of personal irresponsibility, but rather evidence of a broader pattern of athlete exploitation that was common at the time. A lawsuit filed by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar against Collins revealed alleged misconduct, including mishandling of funds and poor investment decisions. By the end of 1986, 8 of Collins's former clients, including Samson, had fired him. This pattern indicated a systemic problem that affected multiple prominent players, not individual failings by the athletes themselves. Samson's financial troubles continued into his retirement, leading to legal issues in the mid-2000s. He faced charges related to unpaid child support and was found to have concealed income and assets. He eventually agreed to a plea bargain that included a brief prison sentence for mail fraud in exchange for prosecutors dropping more serious charges. These post-career struggles illustrate the long-term challenges that many professional athletes face when transitioning to life after sports. The problems weren't fleeting but represented an extended struggle that lasted decades beyond his playing days. However, these difficulties don't define his legacy or diminish his accomplishments on the basketball court. The legacy of Ralph Sampson extends far beyond his injuries or personal struggles. His story represents a fascinating symphony of what-ifs that continues to captivate basketball fans decades later. The central question that lingers is whether a healthy Samson could have been the catalyst for a dynasty alongside Hakeem Olajuwon. The promise of the Twin Towers was so immense that many analysts believe they could have won multiple championships if both players had stayed healthy throughout their careers. The combination of Sampson's versatility and Olajuwon's dominance created matchup problems that few teams could solve. Their brief time together showed glimpses of what might have been possible with more time and better health. Sampson's career is often compared to other talented players whose careers were shortened by injury. Players like Yao Ming, Grant Hill, and Penny Hardaway all faced similar battles with chronic physical problems that prevented them from reaching their full potential. The comparison to Yao Ming is particularly meaningful, as both were oversized talents whose frames ultimately couldn't withstand the demands of professional basketball. But unlike many other what-if players, Ralph Sampson received the ultimate recognition for his brief but brilliant peak. In 2012, he was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. This honor is reserved for the greatest players in basketball history, and Sampson's inclusion proves that his impact was truly significant despite the brevity of his prime. The Hall of Fame induction serves as powerful validation that his peak years were genuinely transcendent. During those few seasons when he was healthy, fans witnessed something they had never seen before: a 7'4" player who could handle the ball and move with the grace of a much smaller player. It was a spectacle that captured the imagination of an entire generation and changed how people thought about what was possible in basketball. Today, when we watch players like Victor Wembanyama, we're seeing the fulfillment of the vision that Ralph Sampson first introduced to the basketball world. The modern game is filled with versatile big men who can shoot, pass, and defend multiple positions. These players exist because Sampson proved it was possible decades ago. His influence extends beyond just the style of play. Samson showed that being different didn't mean being limited. He proved that traditional expectations about positions and roles could be challenged and overcome. His willingness to be unconventional opened doors for future generations of players who didn't fit the typical molds. The contemporary comparison to Victor Wembanyama highlights the timeless nature of what made Samson special. Both players represent the unicorn archetype, impossibly tall athletes who possess skills typically associated with much smaller players. The fact that we're still making these comparisons 40 years later shows how ahead of his time Samson truly was. Ralph Sampson's story ultimately serves as a reminder of both the fragility and the beauty of athletic greatness. His career demonstrates how quickly circumstances can change and how precious peak performance truly is. But it also shows how a brief period of excellence can create a lasting legacy that influences the sport for generations. Rather than focusing on what might have been, we should celebrate what actually was. Ralph Sampson revolutionized basketball by showing what was possible for players of extraordinary size. He won every major award available to him in college, proved himself immediately as a professional, and helped create one of the most exciting front courts in basketball history. His unfinished symphony stands not as a cautionary tale, but as an inspiring reminder that greatness comes in many forms. Sometimes the most important contributions aren't measured in championships or longevity, but in the ways a person changes how others think about what's possible. The numbers alone tell an incredible story of success. During his peak years, Samson averaged 15.4 points, 8.8 rebounds, and 1.6 blocks per game, while playing a style that had never been seen before at his height. These statistics don't capture the full impact of his presence on the court. Opposing teams had to completely change their strategies when facing him because there was no established playbook for defending a 7'4" player who could shoot from anywhere. Consider what Ralph Sampson accomplished in just 4 short years of elite play. He transformed from college superstar to professional success story to cultural phenomenon. The fact that he achieved Hall of Fame recognition in such a brief window speaks to the incredible intensity of his impact. Most players need decade-long careers to earn such honors, but Sampson's peak was so brilliant that it couldn't be ignored despite its brevity. The Twin Towers era represents one of the most exciting periods in basketball history. When Samson and Olajuwon shared the court, they created a spectacle that drew fans from around the world. Television ratings soared when the Rockets played because people wanted to witness something they had never seen before. Two impossibly tall players who could both dominate in completely different ways, working together to create basketball magic. Their chemistry extended beyond just their complementary skills. Samson's ability to step outside and create space opened up the interior for Olajuwon to work his magic. Meanwhile, Olajuwon's presence in the paint allowed Samson the freedom to showcase his unique versatility without being forced into traditional center responsibilities. They didn't just coexist, they elevated each other to heights neither could have reached alone. The 1986 playoff run remains one of the most inspiring underdog stories in sports history. The Rockets weren't supposed to beat the Lakers. Magic Johnson's Showtime Lakers were heavily favored and considered one of the greatest teams ever assembled, but Samson and Olajuwon refused to accept conventional wisdom. They played with a confidence and determination that carried their entire team to unexpected heights. That buzzer-beating shot against the Lakers wasn't just a basketball moment. It was a statement about refusing to accept limitations. Samson stepped up in the biggest moment possible and delivered when his team needed him most. The image of him celebrating while Lakers fans sat in stunned silence captures everything that made him special. He thrived under pressure and rose to meet the greatest challenges. Even his struggles with coach Bill Fitch reveal positive aspects of his character when viewed properly. Samson's preference to spend his off-seasons at home in Virginia wasn't about laziness or lack of commitment. It showed his deep connection to his roots and his understanding that mental health and personal relationships matter as much as physical preparation. He was ahead of his time in recognizing the importance of work-life balance for professional athletes. His quiet, introverted nature was actually a strength that allowed him to stay focused on what truly mattered. While other players sought attention and headlines, Samson let his performance speak for itself. He understood that consistency and professionalism were more valuable than flashy personalities or public drama. His teammates respected him precisely because he led by example rather than through empty words. The financial difficulties he faced after retirement highlight the importance of systemic changes in how professional athletes are protected and educated about their finances. Samson's experience with agent Tom Collins helped expose widespread problems that led to better regulations and protections for future players. His struggles contributed to positive changes that have helped countless other athletes avoid similar situations. His willingness to be vulnerable about his mistakes and challenges shows remarkable character growth. Many people in his position would have hidden from public scrutiny or blamed others for their problems. Instead, Samson took responsibility and worked to make things right, even when it meant accepting difficult consequences. This demonstrates the same determination and integrity that made him successful on the basketball court. The legal issues he faced in the 2000s, while serious, also show his commitment to his children and his efforts to fulfill his responsibilities as a father. The fact that he worked to resolve these matters and accepted accountability demonstrates personal growth and maturity. Many people face complex family situations, and Samson's efforts to address his obligations show his fundamental decency as a person. Today's basketball landscape provides constant reminders of Ralph Sampson's enduring influence. Every time we see a tall player bringing the ball up the court or shooting three-pointers, we're witnessing the continuation of the revolution Samson started. Players like Kristaps Porzingis, Joel Embiid, and of course Victor Wembanyama all benefit from the path he blazed decades ago. The positionless basketball that defines the modern game traces its roots directly back to Samson's innovative approach. He proved that traditional positions were artificial limitations that could be overcome with skill and creativity. Today's coaches encourage versatility and multiple skill sets precisely because players like Samson showed what was possible when you refused to be confined by conventional thinking. His influence extends beyond professional basketball into youth development and training programs. Young players who don't fit traditional molds now have hope because Samson proved that being different could be an advantage rather than a limitation. Basketball academies around the world teach skills that Samson pioneered, helping players of all sizes develop complete games rather than being pigeonholed into narrow roles. The respect he receives from current players and coaches demonstrates the lasting nature of his impact. When modern superstars talk about basketball history, they consistently mention Ralph Sampson as a pioneer who changed how the game is played. This recognition from his peers proves that his contributions were genuine and significant, not just nostalgic memories from an earlier era. His story also provides inspiration for anyone facing unexpected challenges or setbacks. Life rarely follows the perfect script we envision, and Samson's journey shows how to maintain dignity and purpose even when circumstances change dramatically. He didn't let injuries or personal struggles define him completely, instead finding ways to contribute and remain connected to the sport he loved. The Basketball Hall of Fame induction ceremony in 2012 served as a powerful validation of everything Sampson accomplished during his career. Standing alongside the greatest players in basketball history, he received recognition for innovations that transformed the sport. The ceremony wasn't just about past achievements, it was about acknowledging his ongoing influence on basketball's evolution. Ralph Sampson changed basketball forever. He was the first player to prove that being 7 feet tall didn't mean being confined to traditional expectations. He showed that versatility and skill could exist at any size, paving the way for the modern game we love today. That's not a wasted career. That's a revolutionary legacy that continues to inspire players and fans alike. Ralph Sampson didn't just play basketball, he transformed it, proving that sometimes the greatest impact comes not from what you accomplish, but from what you make others believe is possible. His journey teaches us that success isn't always measured in championships or longevity. Sometimes the most important victories come from breaking barriers, challenging assumptions, and showing others that limitations exist only in our minds. Ralph Sampson did all of this and more, creating a legacy that will inspire basketball players for generations to come. So the next time someone mentions Ralph Sampson's name, remember this. You're talking about basketball's first unicorn, a player who changed the game forever and whose influence can still be seen in every versatile big man who takes the court today. If you enjoyed learning about this basketball legend, make sure to subscribe for more incredible stories about the players who shaped the game we love. Ralph Sampson's legacy lives on, and his impact will continue to inspire future generations of basketball greatness.